We're on to the Cleveland Browns. Did not have a first-round pick once again, and they finished 31st in the composite rankings. Only 6 total picks for the Browns, I believe. Is that right? I just lost them. Tends to happen. Oh, no. There we go. Yeah, 6 total picks for the Browns. Michael Hall, the first pick in round 2 from Ohio State. It's going Michael Hall from Ohio State, then Zach Zinter from Michigan, back-to-back. It's like they're starting locker room wars with their first 2 picks. Zinter, of course, got hurt late in the season in the Ohio State game, so feels like not necessarily a redshirt candidate, but maybe a look forward to being a potential starter down the road. And a guy that you like, Jamari Thrash, the wide receiver out of Louisville, in the 5th round. It's every year there's a couple drafts like this where it's not. I don't think there's anything that really stands out, anything great. And then when you're missing a first-round pick and you don't do anything to add volume, it's just an okay draft.
Yeah, it's solid. I mean, where was it in the?
It was 31st. It was second to last. Yeah,
that's harsh. I feel like that's harsh, right? It's not a bad draft. It's just not.
Nobody grades it relative to what you have, right? They look at the player. You had 6 picks. It's tough to feel good about 6 picks unless they all look great.
But there are D's in this grading, D+, D, and then a bunch of C's. Like, I don't quite see how you get to a D with this draft haul. Do you?
Well,
because that's actively saying these are either bad players or massive reaches, and I don't think that's true in any case, is it?
No, it's just because all the picks, because they had a second and a third rounder, and then everything else was round 5 or later. That's
like a done deal already. I don't think you can really penalize.
That's what I'm saying. But nobody's doing that mental math.
I guess
everybody's
Zinter was
sleep deprived on a Saturday and they look at the players and they say, I don't think there's a lot of impact players here. That's a D.
Zinter was a fairly significant reach relative to the big board.
Because of the injury.
127 on the consensus board.
He probably goes around 85, I think, if he doesn't get hurt later in the season.
Yeah.
But you get a power guard there. Michael Hall's an interesting player. Did you have takes on him? Was that Ren? I know Ren absolutely loved Michael Hall, but more of an undersized D tackle that, when he wins, he's got those quick wins, really quick. He's got one of the one play reps that go around sometimes on Twitter are fun. He's got one play where he absolutely wrecked Joe Alt in the Notre Dame game. Just felt the down block, swims him, gets in position, makes and finishes a play. That's the type of defensive tackle that he is. And given the depth on the Browns' defensive line, I love that addition of Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State.
Yeah, I didn't love him. He's that undersized, classic, quick. His game is built off quickness in the way some of these other guys are. But the difference between him, say, and a Kalijah Kancey the year before, I think is stark, and that's why he's a second-round undersized guy as opposed to a first-round guy. His game is built off quickness, and he didn't feel that quick on his tape. So I think he's going to have some work to do. Obviously, he'll be a situational guy in that defensive line, but it's a good addition. I don't have any problems with it. I just think that's the type of player he is as a second rounder. Zinter, I think, is a good pick, even though it is a bit of a reach. The injury is probably why. And then I love Jamari Thrash as an addition. They don't need him because they've already made moves, and that's a good receiving core already. But he could absolutely carve a role on that. Thrash is a guy that was going to get completely overlooked in what is a stupidly loaded wide receiver class. But I think Jamari Thrash belongs much higher up in the conversation this year than he actually ended up being. Really sudden mover, got some amazing yards after the catch plays, had some pretty bad quarterback play as well. His testing was pretty average, which I think is part of why he slipped as far as he did. But he's a great poster child for the PFF gas. The tracking data had him consistently elite for 3 straight years. So given his instinctive adjustments to the ball, instinctive adjustments to the quarterback, the only thing he doesn't do well is he's just not a contested catch guy in any way, shape, or form. He is going to get, if it's close at the catch point, he's probably going to lose. But he's good at separating. He's almost Jerry Jeudy in that regard, right? He's really good at separating. But if it's contested by the time the ball arrives, he's not your guy.
It's interesting how much the Browns have invested the last couple of years between Amari Cooper trade for a 5th, right? Jerry Jeudy for mid-round draft picks. Again, that's why they didn't have draft capital.
Right.
Traded for Jerry Jeudy, traded for Elijah Moore. So their top 3 guys were all traded for. And then they've drafted guys like David Bell, Cedric Tillman, and now Jamari Thrash. They have definitely attacked wide receiver with volume. And, Thrash might have an opportunity to contribute as a yak-centric guy, which is a little different from what they have on the roster, I'd say. There's just not a lot of reps to go around at the moment at receiver.
Yeah, that's the thing that he brings to the table that's different to the rest of this group, the yards after the catch stuff. Like Amari Cooper, none of them are bad at it necessarily. Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, they're all fine actually at yards after the catch, but he's a different guy when it comes to that stuff. So there's definitely a role, I think, for him on that team, on that depth chart. And, guys like Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy are very good route running technicians to be learning from.
So, yeah, that's why the Browns don't get good grades. They had 2 picks before day 3.
I mean, look,
that's how it is. That's how it goes.
Everybody has their own process. To me, if you are penalizing a draft for moves that have been made before the draft, I feel like that's just stupid process, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's one thing factoring in moves that were made during the draft, because that's part of it. Like the Vikings trading away half their draft during a draft would be one thing. Teams that have already done that months ago for players that have been on the roster for weeks, that's not the draft. Just because it's now the consequences of those moves, that's not what we're grading here.
All right, maybe I'll do this at some point. I haven't seen anybody yet that literally takes every allotted draft pick. We'll call that, your starting point. Every allotted draft pick, your 7 plus any comp picks. This is your starting point, and literally everything that you get from those picks. But the other thing that you have to do on the what'd you start with? I mean, when they trade for a Jerry Jeudy, you got to factor in the contract. So at some point, somebody will do analysis on everything that's like, okay, you started with all these picks. I forget the exact. Do you remember the exact picks that they traded for Jeudy? No. But it's like we gave away these 2 draft picks, and we got Jerry Jeudy in return.
Yeah, but
also on the balance sheet is the contract, right? So you've got your rookie contracts plus whatever veteran contracts you're adding to that.
But the problem with that is half of those deals don't get completed until like 3 years down the line. Like you get these things, the Deshaun Watson trade is finally complete. You know what I mean? And
but for now, you could say, hey, we got a 2 next year, which is valued. I mean, you could put a hypothetical value on it.
2024 5th-round pick from the Panthers via Baker Mayfield trade and a 2024 6th-round pick.
Right, so they lost a 5 and a 6, right? So a 5 and a 6 this year for Jerry Jeudy. That's part of the draft haul, plus what they had to pay for him, right? So it's all.
I just think
it's all fine.
To me, if you are grading a draft, you grade from Thursday onwards. You don't grade anything that happened before Thursday. That's not part of the draft.
Oh, so you don't want to add Jerry Jeudy into this?
No, I want to, in fact, strip out all that stuff. I think if you're grading a draft, you should grade things that, when the clock starts, that's what you're grading.
I guess. I mean, to me, it starts with whatever you have allotted. But if you're doing it just from Thursday, well, we're not factoring trades up and trades down. I mean, we're not doing that.
No, and it could be a completely, like a team could trade away future draft picks, get fired as a regime, and the next year it's a completely different regime. You're like downgrading a GM for what the last guy did in the job. That's ridiculous.
I'm not doing that.
People are, and you're tacitly endorsing it by not steadfastly disagreeing or being on the same side as me. You're on the wrong side of history here.
I'm saying let's say your starting point while you're the GM. Yeah, I mean, if you're handed 3 draft picks, that's your starting point.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of debate about the discount rate of the future picks.
Sure.
I mean,
it's always been
nerds are arguing about it.
It's always been arbitrary, right? Or we just drop it around. Why?
Dropping it around is pretty strong. But I mean, there's some level of discount. I get it.